held together we survive.
Pain as portal. Queer crip magic. Interdependence is power. Welcome to Held Together. I'm Xander Keller, and I'm in my bed, as usual. This bed that has gone from an isolation chamber to a community space. And I want to invite you in. Held Together is an invocation, an exposing, where we literally bring folks into my bed to talk about life inside a care web. A web that includes disability, queerness, sickness, neurodivergence, and the intimate realities of interdependence. I used to try to hold it all together, and now I feel held together. This is a recording from a live Zoom event where I bring a guest into my bed. So you may hear other folks besides me, my guest, and our host, Nora.
Welcome to Held Together. We are here today with Xander and Francis Cimarron and Mack Packard. And what are we doing here? We are living proof of a care web, living proof of solidarity through connection, through and across land and across the experience and the embodied experience. A little bit to share about Francis. Francis is a white, disabled, neuro-queer, solo parent, goblin, musician, craftsperson, ritual artist, somatic practitioner, song leader, and community organizer, navigating neurodifference, HEDS trifecta, and multiple disabling events, including Lyme, long COVID, and CSF leak. All of this for Francis has deeply influenced the way they move in the world, and disability shapes the space they tend for community and continues to shape them by the ways it invites their community to tend them, which is what we are doing here together today. Mack is a disability advocate, poet, and community organizer focused on building communal disability pride in the face of an increasingly ableist culture. Mack's belief is that cultivating joy and worth as a disabled, sick, queer person is humanity preserving as the cultural mainstream tries to strip it away. Mack believes that moving toward each other's pain and mortality as community members is a portal to unlock the magic of existence. On that note, magic and music and song seem like they go together. Are we ready for this?
I think so. I think I've just been reflecting on what it means to be ready a lot lately. There's something in me and something in a lot of my teachings around tracking capacity and knowing when you don't have enough capacity to show up. And I think that's like a really helpful frame for disrupting grind culture and the way that we can like throw ourselves into situations when it's harmful. And I'm just noticing that so often I'm showing up when I'm not ready and when I don't have enough capacity. And today is one of those days, and I think it's one of those days for Mack and Francis as well. And I think that is part of our baseline a lot of the time. And part of what I'm interested in exploring is like showing up anyway, and from a different frame and a different lens than the like grinding, ignoring, disassociating that I was raised in, but not just saying like, okay, I can't do anything because I'm not well enough or because I don't have enough spoons. And I'm realizing that I don't have enough of my own spoons right now, but together we kind of like start counting some spoons up, and so I think hopefully collectively we have enough spoons, or maybe we don't, but that's kind of part of the framing that I have for this moment is like, I'm not ready and I'm here. And I think that might just be ready enough. And I want Mack to help me learn a new practice of visual descriptioning.
Yeah, so this is Mack. One habit that I'm in for accessibility purposes is saying it's my name before I speak so that people who don't have sight know who's talking. And doing visual descriptions in advance so that folks can orient who have no sight or less sight. So my name is Mack. I use she and they pronouns. I am a white femme presenting person with gold rimmed glasses on and collarbone length red hair. I'm wearing a white crop top that says big sick energy on it. And I'm sitting in my bed with a gold pillow behind me, my friend Frances to my left. There are dark green walls behind us with some dark green art.
And I'm Frances, sitting to the left of Mack. I am a white person with very dark hair, kind of cropped punk rock top with the long jellyfish curls underneath. And I have on a white collared shirt with 2 clowns in red ink. In the same bed, in the same room with the same gold pillows and green walls.
I'm loving this. So good. Okay, let me try. I'm Xander. They, them pronouns. I'm in a bed. I'm currently in between houses, so I'm in not my bed, but my bed for today. And I have a red shirt that I made that says science was never objective. And I have red inside glasses. I have kind of like bedhead that is kind of perpetual with some shaped sides. And I don't know what color hair I have. Blondish brown. Is that good? And beige walls behind me and a blue robe that I've curled under my neck to help me have some head neck support. We also have Nora here, who I want to describe you, Nora. I can't describe you. Okay, so Nora is helping hold this container of all the held togethers with me, and today helping us hold this space. Nora is also in a seemingly bed kind of situation with lots of pillows around her, and she has a purplish kind of shirt and some dark rimmed glasses and brown hair that's pulled back. And Nora is available also to be tracking the chat. If y'all have any questions or concerns or needs, please don't hesitate to pop them in the chat. Here we are. Today has been a long time coming. And Mack and I tried to do this a couple of times over the course of a number of months and didn't have enough capacity when the time came around. And I'm noticing that the first few times we were going to do it, we were not going to do it live because that felt like too much to pull off. And also, who knew if we were going to have words that were going to make sense or any of the things. And so I'm just noticing that we're here live and we have a bonus person, Frances, with us that feels extra special. And some of the things that we're hoping to touch on today is what it's like to be leaking. We all leak life in some similar and some different ways. I think it's kind of cool to have 3 of us together in one space to talk about it. In particular, we have spinal fluid leaks. And for me, I know that leaking has many other meanings. Energetic leaks, intestinal leaks, like other things that feel kind of woven through my leaking experience. So that's one of our topics that will come through. And we all have found song as kind of a life-saving agent in our experience. So we're going to try to explore song and ritual and also bring some song in And I wonder if you two would be willing to start us off with a little grounding song. And the invitation for song always in any of our spaces is that it's not about sounding good. It's just about being in the sound. And so if you want to sing or mumble or hum along, that's super invited, or you can just take it in.
I'm sure we'll circle back to the bigger story, but the song was a song that Francis sang regularly during their hospitalization with a CSF leak last spring. I was there for pieces of that hospitalization and witnessed the way that Francis would sing this and have nurses and visitors all singing this song together mid hospitalization. So it feels really special for that reason to have witnessed. Is that my note? I know this life ain't easy. Some days I wish I were water or stone. Fear binds, but loving will free me. Keep on, they say, child, stay soft. I know this life ain't easy. We're taught to hold up our shield and sword. Fear binds, but loving will free me. Pray I'm gonna stay soft.
I also want to share who wrote that song. Sam Rise in Philly, who's a Black queer activist, song leader, songwriter, musician, who really is at the front lines of a lot going on in the world. So every time I sing this song, not only do I think about what it means to me, but I also think about Sam and all the work that they do.
Yeah, feeling the big rise of song in resistance movements right now in our world. Glad to have Sam's energy here with us and thinking about what other energies and resources we want to call in during this time. I know I have a lot already arising in me as we're just thinking about touching on some of this, and I can feel it in the collective as well. It's like so special to be here, and also it's so much. And thinking about opening some of these stories and some of these experiences is scary, I feel, to myself, and it's also activating because it's not just a story, it's so much more than that. So I'm just wondering if we can all find some resource that we have right now that we want to have with us. It could be like a tangible object that we want to hold or feel, maybe the chair or the bed, or it could be an ancestor or anything really, but just kind of grounding into what resources we have right now that we can also bring into this space with us. I'm feeling the resource of being together and knowing that doing this by myself would not feel possible. And I'm hoping that doing it with each of you will help it like alchemize and metabolize some of these layers that feel so hard to be with. I'm just embracing the sacred silence and the slowness that song invokes. It just feels like a safe space to go at the pace that my actually going at and not try to come up with a thought or a thing to say. It's not naturally arising.
One thought that I have is, would it be helpful to describe what we're talking about with leaks a little, just a tiny bit for the purpose of this context? So one of the threads, although there are multiple, I think, here, but one of the threads that brings the three of us together is, as Xander mentioned, cerebrospinal fluid leaks, which are when the dura of the spinal canal pop or are punctured, and cerebrospinal fluid leaks out the body. And the brain is in a vat of cerebrospinal fluid. And so when we leak, whether from our cranium or from our spinal canal, we lose the fluid that our brain sits in and requires. and it starts to pull down at the back of our head into our skull. And that lack of oxygen causes a host of neurological, cognitive, and physical symptoms that can range for people from pretty mild to deadly and attacking every single system in the body. And so the three of us, while we've had different varieties of leaks between the three of us, have all had some degree of profound leak. So that's just some kind of anatomical context. But what has also been kind of interest between the three of us is the spiritual part of living with a CSF leak, as well as the other health things that the three of us move through, because in different ways, all three of us have described the experience as living somewhere in between life and death, not fully alive, not fully gone, some strange liminal in between land that can be incredibly difficult to bridge and try to explain to people who aren't having the experience what it's like. It's a very difficult to capture world that for me has made me feel like I'm kind of behind glass with the rest of the world moving at a totally different pace.
Very isolating.
Mm-hmm. And so finding these folks here who have had that experience has felt, I mean, Xander used the word life-saving about song, but for me, the song is just, an added bonus. The thing that has saved my life is these connections with other leakers. Like truly, truly saved my life is the people here and a few other folks who've had the experience too.
Yeah. I want to say too that Xander and I have never actually talked about mechanics or the ins and outs of our experiences. This is Frances talking. I am new to Xander. Xander and I are new to each other, but we have many threads connecting us, and we also haven't really had a chance to talk about the details of our experiences with leaking or with EDS or any of those things. Yet I don't even need to have that conversation to know that I feel kindred with this person, because we have this shared experience that is so strange and to some degree it's pretty rare. Even in the leak communities, it can be rare to have a profound leak. And I think what I mean, if I use that word, and I think maybe what Mack meant by it is, a profound leak is definitely a more intense experience than a mild leak, where it really takes you. Yeah, you don't have access to living your life even for 5 minutes a day, let alone many hours, which some people can manage to do that with this condition. So yeah, I think knowing other people that have gone through such an underworld experience, and look at us all here able to have conversations about it. Sometimes just the magic of that is what keeps me going. And then right now I'm so excited. I'm so ready to share our story. I want to share how do we know each other? I've been thinking a lot about how do I want to present this story. In this moment, I'm feeling like my timeline with it and Mack's timeline are different. And I think there's a profoundness for me in the parts of the story being revealed, not necessarily in chronological order. How do you feel about that, Mack?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, last spring, I direct a choir called Resound Community Choir in Asheville, North Carolina. It's a queer-centered choir. There's a lot of disabled folks. I think we counted maybe last season. I think we had like 14 people with EDS in a choir of like 75 people, which is a lot. So even though I wasn't like putting that on the flyers or the advertisements, like, hey, if you have EDS, this is the perfect choir for you. Somehow that's who has showed up. That's who the community is. EDS is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. There are many types of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome: vascular type, classical type, hypermobile type. Most of them, there's genetic testing for. Hypermobile type is a little bit more complicated because it seems there are maybe multiple genetic markers, but none that are currently being named as the diagnosing markers. So
And it comes with a host of comorbidities, including MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, and POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and all kinds of things that come out. It's just like a garden. It's just like all kinds of things come up and pop up volunteer style in an EDS garden. So I started this choir at spring or Leap Day 2024. It had been in my dreams to do a choir like this for so many years, but finally this big push happened. Choir was born, and I made the choice to start a social media account, but it was really tricky for me. I was like, I don't being seen. Oh, this is hard. I'm not trying to like promote. I just want to inspire people and uplift people with what we're doing here. And it just became kind of the lifeline for me, even as I was struggling. At this point, I wasn't dealing with CSF leaks, but I was dealing with plenty of other disabling situations and chronic migraines. What I thought was migraines for many, many years, crippling. And then in the spring of 25, a year ago, showed up at our choir, and we often have this sort of circle at the end of a choir, or really sometimes in between different songs, for people to share about their experience of singing the song. And Mack shared a couple things now and then in those spaces that made me feel really curious about their experience, but I didn't know they had EDS. I knew that some other things about their situation, but I didn't know anything about CSF leaks or anything like that. And then starting kind of end of April, I was really struggling. I was in so much pain, head pain, like could not get through our practice sessions. I was just like, what is going on? Like, I was used to having migraines even every day, but this felt different. And throughout the month of May, it was starting to amp up. And we had a big concert at the end of the month, 31st of May. And I was just determined to push through. And we were going to do it still. And I was going to show up even if I was in crazy pain. But by the end of the month, it became clear there was no pushing through that was going to happen. And Mack, I can't remember, you might have to tell this part, but at some point I had already suspected also in the past some things had happened where I think maybe I had some signs of leaking. So I was aware that that was a thing, but I wasn't sure that that was what was happening with me. But somehow Mack made this. What happens? I can't remember that part.
We ended up on a phone call and I said, "Hey, I think you're leaking," because I could see it on their face. I had been in choir for several months, and Francis, although I had seen them in pain and migraines and struggling, they came to choir sometime that April with this very particular look on their face, which we now call leak face, which is, you don't have color when you are leaking. Your fluid, it's hard to describe, but you don't have color in your cheeks. Your facial structure can sort of be drooping downward, and it's a very particular look. And I had been leaking myself for 8 years on and off. So I'd seen that face in the mirror so much that I saw it on my choir director and was like, holy shit, it's really not my place to tell this person that they're leaking. But I witnessed them struggling deeper and deeper until I could see it from the outside. They were showing up to choir and kind of incredible that they were still directing, but really collapsing, like in the center of the circle, like hardly able to stand.
Yeah, I wasn't standing anymore by the end.
Not standing, and the suffering was just kind of emanating from them. So somehow, even though we'd had very little one-on-one connection at that point, I essentially was like, here's what I think is happening. But more than anything, it was a very strong intuition that I was having, that it felt very much like a force was pulling us together.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had this suspicion. And then when Max shared their experience with me, I was like, yes, this is exactly what this feels like. And by the end of that month, I couldn't even lift my head. Like, I had to be completely flat. I couldn't even have the tiniest, even still was in such excruciating pain. I was like hallucinating from pain. I couldn't eat anything. I could barely drink water. I would just vomit. the people who gathered around me to support me in the emergent moment of needing so much support. And I'm also a single parent, so that added this whole new level of need to the situation. Choir folks gathered around me and dear friends, and I ended up, after multiple attempts, getting admitted to the hospital and finally getting an epidural blood patch. I had never heard of this before until it was happening to me. Essentially, the interventional radiologist, and in my case, it was actually a neurosurgeon, they, through an IV, will actually take your blood and inject it directly into your spine, into the spinal cavity. So not into your dura, but into that area of the spine where they suspect the leak, which for me is my lumbar spine. And immediately I felt human again. I went from being so gray, even in photos, I look back and I can see it. I looked like I was not alive anymore. I was completely gray. And then I got the blood patch and instantly I had color in my cheeks. I could think. And I'm missing a whole like really dramatic moment that happened with Mack and that how I ended up getting the blood patch, because I was on my way there and then they were trying to like pull me back. I was having seizures all the time, the whole day, all the time, like constantly. And they didn't know what to do. They're like, I don't know if we can do this patch if you're seizing. And they were trying to put me back in the hospital room. And Mac and this nurse who it just so happened that my nurse had also had a CSF leak. And Mac and him had a conversation. I want you to tell this part.
I think what I want to say is that this is a love story.
Yeah,
I think we
it's a
need to
love story.
rewind. This is a love story about CSF leaks. And so Frances just gave you a glimpse into the future of some things that happened. And I'm going to take you back to the past where I was dying in the hospital from a CSF leak in spring of 2024. And I was at the very, very edge of life and death in a way that I had been a few times, but this was different. Like Frances said, I couldn't lift my head. I couldn't think thoughts. My lasso on selfhood was completely severed. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't have others to this planet anymore. And in a moment where I could lift my hand and lift my head, I was on Instagram, as one is when they're dying in the hospital, right? And I saw a clip of this choir director, Frances's very first ever Resound community choir clip popped up on Instagram. The first post I made. We don't know each other. We don't know anything about each other. I'm in Colorado. This is in Asheville. I had like 50 people maybe follow the Instagram at that point. And I had this deep intuitive lightning strike that if I got to survive, which at that point didn't feel very likely to me, if I got to survive this hospitalization, which had been many hospitalizations and many, many years of leaking for me, that I would just pack up my life as a very, very sick person, give it all up in Denver and move to Asheville with my dog in the car and sing in this choir. Like it felt like this is a carrot. I don't know why. And if I get to live through this, that is where my body will go. And so I did survive that hospitalization from the leak. And I did land in Asheville in this choir. And within a month of being in Asheville is when this story kicks up with Frances. So I was pulled across the country for a reason I couldn't have predicted, but it was the deepest pull I've ever felt just to go sing in a room full of people, pretty arbitrary. And within a month, my choir director had the same condition and really quickly started to die, essentially, in front of my eyes from the same condition that I had just been dying from. So I guess I want to pause there and just say that is the intersection of why the story feels important to tell. This is what I want to say about sick and leaking people, is that all the suffering that we've experienced, the sick people that I've met, the people who leak, the people who have this kind of stuff, there is also a profound magic alongside this depth of suffering that feel like they live on the most extreme opposite poles, and yet they are both a part of this experience. And so I guess that was kind of a long landing, but that is what feels so important to say about the connection with Xander as well, of like these are the magical threads, these people, and the ways that we find each other and the ways that we sing together and survive together and take saving each other's lives. That is the thing that makes this nightmare of an experience also somehow the most beautiful thing I could possibly imagine.
Yeah, and I think I just want to call in the emotions. I have so many emotions and I can feel myself trying to kind of hold it together. I know everyone's having their own experience and connection to all of the different and similar challenges and synchronicities and interconnections. I'm just holding that last line you said, Mac. It's like the nightmare is somehow tied to or necessary for the unprecedented beauty. Holding that reality is so much. I'm just looking at folks in this room with us who I know this so deeply in different ways. Maybe it's not leaking, but it's other stuff. And for me, I feel like I walk through this life with people either seeing the nightmare of my life or seeing the magic of my life. And it's an either or. And the people who can see all of that in me and with me are the people that I need. Being able to like be in this with you and also be connected to your story and have other threads of similar stories. It gives me something that I know feeds parts of me that would never get nourished if I was living a more typical life. And I think recognizing that there's some unique layers of love, magic, and I don't know the words, that those things like come alongside this unbelievable suffering. It's hard to believe, and it's also like so special. And the types of relationships that we get to have, that we have to have, that keep us alive are relationships that I didn't know were possible in like typical relationship models on TV and in life that's kind of just out circulating in the general stream. That this kind of love and this type of intimacy and depth was even, I didn't even know. And the types of relationships that we get to have, that we have to have, that keep us alive are relationships that I didn't know were possible in like typical relationship models on TV and in life that's kind of just out circulating in the general stream. That this kind of love and this type of intimacy and depth was even, I didn't even know. And it's special that today's Valentine's Day because I think there's so many layers of like decolonizing this day and redefining love. And so often it's like romantic relationships or like Valentine's Day and whatever. And as we start, and I think we're all on this page, but at least for me, like I want to have romance with all my friends and I want to and do practice love in ways that like my parents can't understand. I love your parents and I know that it's really confusing. And part of it is because of this, because the type of love that you two just described, that's even beyond your conception of who each of you are, is a love that redefines love. And it's so special to be in your presence and to like be able to soak in you two together in this gold bed. And I'm just like wanting to soak it up because it feels like such a gift. And I'm so grateful we were able to make this happen despite all of the reasons why we shouldn't be here today. And so grateful for you bringing us into your love. And I know that like your love has spread to me, and like Mac and I have our own thread and story, which we probably can't go into because we'll just spend the whole time on our love story, our meeting stories. But it's like I can feel your love and connection feeding my love and connection with Mac and our communities that we support. And so it's just so special to think about the ways that the tendrils and the root systems are all like able to feed and nourish, even though we might not be directly connected. Like Francis and I haven't had a lot of direct connection, but there's still nourishment. Like I feel the nourishment from you. And I think that I'm also like sending nourishment your way. And I just am marveling at that and noticing that like while TV and like family and mainstream culture doesn't have these examples, there are so many models in nature and in villages and other cultures that know about this kind of love. That's not individual, that's not possessive, and that's not always so easy to define. But it's very palpable and powerful. Can we do a little song? Can I sing a song? Okay, so one of the people that helps me in my life is called, her name is Carisha. Some of you might know the band Mom Used. And I've had a really big, long story getting my voice to come through. And it's been very long and had a lot of help with it. And Carisha's one of those people that's been helping me. And so this is a new song. I don't think either of you have heard it yet. I hope I can remember it and do it. It's a little hard. Okay. And the first line is from hidden to held, not hell, although hell might make sense sometimes too. It goes like this. From hidden to hell, we are here, opening up, inviting you near. From hidden to hell, we are here, opening up, embracing our fears. Okay, I have to sit up for this part because it's hard. Okay, let's see. Okay. I have to like get my breath to come for this one. Our roots grow down, intertwining, sharing all we have. And in the giving is receiving, it will all come back. Our roots go down, intertwining, sharing all we have. And in the giving is receiving, it will all come back, all come back.
So powerful. A reminder that's been for me the big lesson in all of this. The times when I feel like I'm a waste of space, like when I just feel like I have nothing to offer, and why would anyone want to like work hard to put in all the effort it takes to not only keep me alive, but try to keep me happy and feeling supported and connected. All just this like endless exchange of giving and receiving, and that even receiving itself can be a gift. I want to share this one thing, especially in this group and for the people who might be listening to hear a dear friend in my last round of leaking, which I'm just now, like this past week, emerging from my house after being on basically homebound for over 2 months for the most part. And this friend brought me this little gift they had made, and the words on it said, "Thank you for your hospitality." It was like this little tiny little altar. And they were explaining to me that my bed, which I've been bound to so much, is a place, me being in my bed and asking for support from my community, it was actually offering hospitality to people who would come and stay there in that bed with me, or come and be slow in my home with me. And it's always such a powerful reminder that even when I'm not contributing the things that I think are important, there's still contributions to me. Also, right before you shared that song, I was thinking of another song. Actually, I have 2 songs I've been thinking about throughout this conversation that were both songs I sang in the hospital. Specifically, that first time. There's been multiple hospitalizations this year for CSF Week, but the first time was the scariest time, and there were a lot of songs because that was the only thing I could do. But
one of the songs, and the song that I was particularly singing while I was having seizures on the gurney on my way to getting this blood patch, as Mack was like in a fist fight with the doctor
Oh my
over
God.
letting me go down the hall while the nurse was like guarding the gurney. It just was very epic.
Can I set the scene before you sing the song?
Yeah.
I also want to say I've been hospitalized for CSF leaks many, many times, and hospitals are really horrific places in my mind and in many of our minds here, I think. I had never seen anyone do before in a hospital experience what Francis did in this hospital, which was sing. And I mean, I'm not saying that it made the experience not a nightmare, but I am saying that it was there was such protective force field in the fact that there was so much song pouring out of their hospital room. The nurses were singing. I mean, I've never seen a person be able to unsterilize their own death process as much as Frances somehow did, even though they didn't know where they were a lot of the time. They didn't know who the fuck was around them most of the time. Their pain and suffering was absolutely immense. They hadn't showered in days and days and days, gray and suffering. And I don't mean to be gruesome, but just watching that level of truly their lifeline was so thin and palpably so. And also them being able to dig this song, beautiful song too, where they knew all the lyrics. They knew the clarity in your voice while you were singing, while you were in that deaf place and in this really sterile environment was for me one of the most, there was so much healing in seeing somebody be able to do that. It was just incredible. And so there were 10 days of fighting in the hospital prior to this blood patch where Frances was having these huge violent seizures and not getting the care that they really needed in the hospital. And there was a lot of advocacy happening. And we're in a pretty small town where the doctors at this major hospital here that we were at really didn't know about CSF leak, which is common, and didn't really believe that was at the root of these really violent seizures and all of this neurological dysfunction that they could palpably see with their own eyes. But so it took a lot of advocating from Frances and Frances's team of friends who were in there to get them to finally agree to doing a blood patch, which is the only treatment for a CSF leak like this. And so finally, after songs and just days of really truly fighting, we got them to agree to the blood patch. And Frances is being wheeled through the hallway, having big seizures, violent seizures. And there's a friend wrapped in bed in Frances's hospital bed with them, had their arms around Frances as they're being wheeled by the nurse, who was also a person who had a CSF leak, which is wild. So that nurse was very bought into our experience. It felt like some of the hospital staff were working pretty steadily against us and Frances, and then some were angels who were just part of the team. And this nurse was an angel, Anthony. And the nurse who we called Hot Doctor, the doctor, the hot doctor was standing in the hallway while Frances was being wheeled out into getting the operation done, and saw that Frances was having these big seizures still and started to be like, they cannot go get this procedure done while they're mid-seizure. And we were like, no. We've been fighting for 10 days. This has to happen. Our friend is on the edge of falling off of this world. This has to happen. And so Frances's scans in the hallway are pulled up. Me and the doctor are standing there truly in an argument back and forth about why it needed to happen. It was starting to be quite chaotic because we were blocking the hallway and other people in hospital beds were kind of around us, and other nurses started to sort of, be clogged in the setting with us. So it started to be populated in this hallway. And through this moment, this acute moment, Frances starts to sing, which is the story you were about to tell. And so that is the chaos all around them. And in the middle of the sea of chaos, encircled in it all, Frances is singing the song.
Well, I want to add one piece about the singing. For me, I could not really even barely talk anymore at that point. I basically had full-on dementia by that point, and
And I also couldn't breathe because I was in so much pain. So for me, the only way I could catch my breath was to sing. It was like this life raft. And the song that came through, and the reason I got excited to share with Xander is this is a song that I learned from Erin from Holistic Resistance. And yeah, it was just like, it was like I was in this like deep, deep well, and there was a rope, someone was going to pull me up, but I barely had the strength to hold on to the rope. And this song was that for me. It was like, hold on, because I could feel my world getting so small, like I was going to disappear or die, which honestly, I really, at that point, it had been a couple days of feeling pretty sure that I was going to die, which, the doctors, my vital signs were all great, but the doctors also were afraid I was going to die, which I think is why they finally gave me the blood patch. Anyway, the song is Hold On.
Hold on just a little while longer, won't you hold on just a little while longer, hold on a little while longer, everything's gonna be alright.
Just sang it over and over, and other people around my bed were singing it with me, and then the nurses were crying.
So, yeah, this moment, it's hard to revisit without getting choked up. But I mean, I think that is the reason really why this moment stopped the hospital equations and the sterilization thinking that I think doctors get stuck in. Of course, cogs in this system thinking. And, Frances is singing with this clarity in this hallway where people are just stopping and their faces are humanizing and their jaws are falling. And this doctor and I are quarreling back and forth, and this doctor is kind of like trailing away from our fight and watching Francis sing. And the nurse above Francis has tears falling down his face as even though the doctor's yelling at the nurse to stop pushing them, the nurse is still holding ready to push them. And the song is just echoing through this hallway. And kind of as the song is going, all of these barriers started to loosen and we all started to move. And that is when, Francis got wheeled down to the operating room, and the doctor, who was just adamant that it couldn't happen, just sort of was like, let go. And it was really special.
That song, if we think about songs that saved us, we don't know who wrote that song because we don't know the people who were surviving slavery singing that song. And we don't know their names. They probably don't have graves with tombstones or any way of remembering them. They've been erased, but that song lives. And I know that that song has saved so many people, including folks surviving slavery, navigating impossible circumstances and feeling the depth and the breadth of that song and its power. And I didn't know this story until right now, which is really powerful because that song I have a whole story myself with that song. And it's probably the main song that helped me get over my fear of singing. And part of what happened for me with that song is I spent a couple of years, a good year with I have a teenage kid who's chosen family, and she has sickle cell anemia and was at the gates of death for her senior year of high school, which was a couple of years ago. And I was her medical guardian at the time and spending all the time at the children's hospital. And it was really hard and it was so painful. And for me, as a white person who's navigated a lot of harm inside of the medical system, being there with a Black person was like a whole other thing, because experiencing medical racism is something I could know about, but I can't understand until I was in that position. There was a week we really thought she wasn't gonna stay with us. Aaron was supporting me from afar, and he was encouraging me to sing. And it felt so weird to sing in a hospital because I have so much trauma in that place and I'm so on edge and she's so uncomfortable and on edge and I was also not confident in my singing, right? And so that was a whole other thing. And that song held us through that unprecedented time. So it's just amazing to feel that story, to hear that story and just know the weavings that have been happening that were all behind the scenes. It's just kind of, wow, unbelievable.
I really do have a very strong sense of the wovenness of the care web and the tensile strength of the thread of song here. It's so beautiful.
Part of what gives songs their power is it's almost like each song has its own life in it and it's going places. It's going to the places where it wants to go. And so often I'll find out after the fact connection points about the history of a song or the person who wrote the song or other people who've been using the song. Things like that to me really reinforce the idea that songs have a life of their own, capital L life. Feeling a little tender because another song I've been thinking about that I want to share, it has a really tender history. For me, it was a song that was sung in the tenderest of moments, not the brave moments, not the breakthrough moments. This was the song that was sung when I was alone at night, thinking I was going to die by myself, or when this is a song that ended up also carrying me through this past summer when I also almost lost my kid, who's also a teenager. I'm thinking here, these are all these different places that we have connections. I have a teenage daughter, and we ended up hospitalized at the same time. She was admitted going through her emergency with her, but by that time I already knew that my symptoms were deteriorating, and I was like, are you serious? At that point, I had just had the one blood patch and I thought, oh, I'm fixed now. I can go on with my life. And months later, came back, not quite to the degree. So my kid is in the hospital and they hospitalized me at the hospital. The rapid response came and forced hospitalized me basically because I was having seizures all over the place. They're like, we can't be having this. In the bed you go. This is the song that carried me through some of those really tender moments. I want to share, but I'm like, can I sing it without crying? The person who wrote this song is Alexa Sunshine Rose, and it was a song she wrote and sang for, I hope I'm getting this story right, but for her husband who was dying. Pretty sure it was a brain tumor. And so, yeah, there's something about the spirit of the song that is appropriate exactly for these kind of moments where you're like right on that edge of passing through or trying not to pass through and holding on in that way. Like, am I just gonna start crying? We'll see. Come now, child, lay it down. Just breathe, just be. Come be cradled in the arms of love. Just breathe, just breathe. Come now, child, lay it down. Just breathe, just be. Come be cradled in the arms of love. Just breathe, just be. Times when I was in too much pain to sing, I just had that song on repeat. My phone next to me, just on loop, hours and hours of that song. Because it's the only one that could meet me in the moment that I was in. And I want to share this part too, because it feels really important. As Mack was talking about the desanitizing hospital space, when my kid was in the hospital and I was singing that song for her, the nurse started singing with me. It was amazing to hear. And there were other songs that I sang while she was in there for a while, and he joined with me. And just like the companionship of this total stranger to share this deeply intimate moment, which is something that's happening all the time in hospitals, but they don't always do the intimacy part. It's not acknowledging how intimate moments are being shared in that kind of space. And something about the song breaks through that and reminds everyone around that it is intimate. Invites people, I think, into choosing to be present with it rather than just being there but not being present, going through the motions of it.
Yeah, that I'm remembering when I finally got the courage and had the desperation to bring song in, that time when Hold On came through. There had been a lot of, it's so weird to have to feel like you're fighting with doctors and providers, but like there was just a lot of feelings of like being not on the same team and feeling like misunderstood and like not cared for. And I was so frustrated and like in this fight, like mama bear fighting mode. And the song completely changed. And the nurse started singing too. And he completely softened. And then he was able to make connection with the doctor. And we were able to go get a test that I'd been trying to get for a really long time. It was so wild. He then humanized with me and like told me his story and told me his relationship to song. And he'd been holding all of this tension too. And I've had that happen so many times where in those settings, it's too hard to find each other's humanity because everyone's holding so much that there's too many walls between our love. You know, there's too much paperwork and regulation and difference of culture. You know, like people were interpreting her behaviors as like her being dissonant. And I'm like, she's in too much pain. It's not that she's trying to not cooperate here. Like we are not able to understand what's going on. And it was so powerful to have song kind of bust through some of those divides and be able to help us realize, well, we're all actually just humans right now doing our best and we don't have enough to go around and that's stressful, but that doesn't mean we need to be fighting each other. And it really makes me so curious what tools we can have in those moments, because those emergency hospital moments are so heightened that it can be so obvious to notice both the disconnect and when something blows through that disconnect. Like, but then it just makes me think about the day to day at the grocery store or in the Uber or at work or wherever we are, even though some of us aren't out in the world that much, or even on the phone with wherever, whenever we're doing whatever. Like, what are those tools and practices that can help us find each other's humanity, especially when there's so much division in our world right now? It feels like there's a lot of lessons that can translate beyond the hospital.
I'm just murmuring song notes to Frances as you speak. There's just a song that feels important, I guess, as a little bookend to some of the story that we're telling. So Frances was hospitalized during when we had our community concert for Frances's choir. And so I also want to just say that throughout this whole process, like the humanization that was happening through song, the softening that both of you are speaking to, Frances just constantly was like telling all the nurses and all the hospital providers, this concert's happening, y'all should come. And
Well, y'all should go because I wasn't going to be there.
Y'all should go. For most of it, though, you were still somehow convinced you might be there. But so this day that Frances finally had their blood patch, I mean, really sweet photo that I'll share with you. We can put it on the thing, but of me kind of cradling Frances's face immediately after the blood patch, because it was a really healing, repaving moment for me of like I had been through the death process from these leaks in hospitals alone so many different times, wishing for an advocate and wishing for softness and humanity. And then I got to be part of that in someone else and somehow got to be present for the moment that they got wheeled back into the room after the blood patch and watched the color refill their face, like really watched like this kind of resurrection happen in this bed. And the second that they got back and I saw them and was like, okay, you're going to live through this moment. Like, you're not going to die. Booked it across town and went to go sing in the concert that is Frances's choir. And so Frances had,
it's our choir. It's not my choir.
Our choir that Frances leads. And so I got to sing in the concert after I'd been, doing hospital stuff that day with Frances and knew that Frances was watching on a video call from the hospital bed. And I looked out in the audience and saw 2 different nurses from the hospital in the audience, watching the choir. And there was this one song in particular that's for me at the concert. It's called Show Me Love. It's by 100 Waters, right? And I think it just is kind of a bookend to this conversation in some ways about breaking through to people and remembering who we are as humans and what ties us together. If you give me my note.
Don't let me show cruelty, though I may make mistakes. Don't let me show ugliness, though I know I can hate. And don't let me show evil, though it might be all I take. Show me love, show me love, show me love. Don't let me think weakly, though I know that I can break. Lead me away from apathy while I am still awake. And don't let me think too long of the one I'm bound to face. Show me love, show me love, show me love. Show me love, show me love, show me love.
Really feels like the perfect bookend to this sacred love story. It's just so beautiful, so powerful.
I'm a little bit of a broken record today, but it's kind of good to repeat ourselves sometimes. And I'm just feeling, I think one of my big things this year is the desirability of disability. And can I desire disability? And can I see the beauty and the magic and the gifts in it? And witnessing you too makes it so obvious to me. Just feeling us. I feel it in us and in our connections and our lives and what becomes possible. Something unlocks that I don't know if we can unlock if we don't need that level of care and support. And in the life or deathness of certain types of struggle, there's the isolation and the inviability that's marketed to us and enforced on us. And then there's this other side of that is interdependence and interconnection and a depth of love and understanding and care that runs so deep because it's survival and because it's so much more than survival. It's survival, but I think of sometimes survival feels sterile to me, like the hospital kind of survival versus the sparkly, magical, fairy, inexplicable coming together, finding each other, feeling the depths and the wells of possibility and impossibility together. That is like the least sterile survival ever. It's a garden, a different kind of garden of so much flourishing that's
within a completely different paradigm. And even just hearing your voices together, it's really special.
Yeah, there's no harmony without togetherness. Wow, those harmonies. I'm a little dizzy. Hearts in my eyes. Okay. Ilex, am I saying it right?
Yeah, and this might be a question that everybody else kind of already knows about. I've been in my health journey for a very long time, and for the past maybe 10 years, I haven't been able to do a lot of research. It feels like literally just bashing my head into a wall trying to go online and do research. So I kind of gave it up. And I tried for a while, a little bit to see if I might have Ehlers-Danlos loss or I don't even what they were calling it at the time, but the thing with the bottom of your brain. And I was wondering about how you got that looked at and actually diagnosed, because I really haven't had anyone take it seriously, and I don't know if that's what's going on with me, and I also kind of don't know would it help even or not. But I was curious about how you.
EDS can be tested clinically or genetically. Clinically, you would be examined by a doctor, ideally an EDS specialist who would take you through the Brayton scale and see if you meet clinical criteria for HEDS. And then there's also genetic testing kits. Now you can do it at home and not even go through a geneticist, but they have at-home testing kits now for the other types of EDS. 13 testable types. There's more than that. 13 testable genetic types. I'm going to speak kind of generally here because I think everyone would say different things about the second part of your question about if it's helpful or not to have the diagnosis. But this conversation was actually just had in an EDS group that I'm part of. And so I was seeing a lot of people responding about this exact question. And the consensus is that for most of us, it's been really helpful in being able to self-advocate, gave us access to new language and understandings about how systemic it is. EDS impacts every single part of the body. It's immune, it's neurological, it's musculoskeletal, it's all of the things. And knowing how to enter into medical spaces and be able to say things to doctors about what you can and can't have touching your body or things that you can and can't ingest and ways you might need to be moved and treated differently. And also just being able to translate symptoms. For me, prior to having a clear diagnosis, I had a lot more fear about all of my symptoms all the time because they're also cardiovascular for a lot of us. And so symptoms can be really, really scary with EDS and cause a lot of nervous system dysregulation from a structural perspective. And so I think for a lot of people, having answers about it is helpful in calming ourselves down to be able to say, understand why my heart and veins are doing this right now. It might be unpleasant. It might still be fear-inducing, but I can sort of sit with some degree of regulation around, like, I understand what is structurally happening and therefore I can, have some more tools to meet myself in what's happening.
I want to add something to that. Well, I would actually add two things. That even if you aren't sure if you have any of the other types, I think getting genetic testing can be important because sometimes you do have a type that requires special attention. And you don't want to be going around assuming that you have HEDS if what you really have is vascular EDS or something like that. I did not get genetic testing because I have other family members who did. And so I know already what my family's strain of EDS is. But just to advise, like, even if you get diagnosed by someone with HEDS, still get a genetic panel if you can. And I also would say, don't be trying to get somebody to diagnose you who doesn't do that. Don't try to convince a doctor to diagnose you if they're not knowledgeable or curious, because those people are not on your side. Those people are not on your team. And I don't mean that we should ever, like, all doctors should be on your team. So basically what I always end up thinking is, if you have a choice to change doctors, do that. Don't keep trying to get the same person to give you care that they don't know how to give you. Go find someone who can. That's my number one advice for anyone pursuing diagnosis. And in my case, I had a doctor who had EDS. So she knew exactly what to do. And then she retired because she was too ill to continue. But that was my lucky.
I just have one question. This, and I know this is probably silly and ridiculous, but I had a doctor who was pretty supportive of me in other ways, but told me I couldn't have EDS because my skin is not stretchy. Do you all have the experience that you always have stretchy skin?
What type has stretchy skin? So that doesn't have anything to do with anything. So, it's kind of rare actually for EDSers to have stretchy skin.
I want to add to that too, that even the flexibility piece, like when you get to a certain age, even your Baden score can be an inaccurate testing device, because when I was 12, I could put my feet behind my head, and now I can't even touch my feet, because your body, as you age with EDS, if you do have EDS, as you age, your muscles are trying to compensate for what your ligaments cannot do. And so your muscles get so tight that you actually get less and less and less flexibility as you age, even less than the average person. Flexibility is not a measure of having EDS, especially if you're trying to get diagnosed later in life.
Yeah, and I mean, we need to have so many more sessions, and it would be awesome to have a whole session just on this. And I think I have 7 things to say, but I'm going to try to make it 2, which is that similarly, for a lot of us have MCAS, which is often connected with EDS, and it can lay down a lot of scar tissue as well on the joints. And so from an inflammatory response. And so I have really loose joints with a lot of muscle tension and scar tissue from a lot of injuries and inflammation. So it doesn't seem like I have EDS sometimes. And so there's a lot of ways that it can be misdiagnosed. And I know, Ilex, you've been around the ringer with doctors not believing and not knowing, and probably every one of us in here has. And so I think that recommendation of like, I was told that I didn't have a CSF leak and I didn't have EDS by 9 neurologists until I found one who was like, what was everyone else thinking? And I was like, I don't know. And so that is part of it. And I think the other thing I would just say, when is it helpful to know or not? I really honor the parts of me and the times in my life when I'm not able to participate in the medical system. And there are periods in my life where that is where I'm at. It's either a choice or a necessity. And so if we are navigating the medical system and having to advocate, having this information is really helpful, and having the diagnoses to be able to advocate and not be gaslit and to all those things. And also, if that's not where you're at, I don't know how helpful it is. There's a lot of ways to navigate this, and Western medicine is one way. It's so tricky, and Mack and I have talked about this before, when the thing that you need is also your abuser. The thing that you need is also the thing that's causing you harm, is the worst experience of chronic illness, when you literally need medical care that is also causing you direct and explicit harm. And so when there are times when you can avoid it or access other ways of surviving and maybe even finding some thriving, I just want to honor and uplift those choices too. So I don't know that like having an EDS diagnosis has really changed my trajectory too much, but there are ways where I can have more awareness and understanding for what's going on for me and to translate that. Those are some of my thoughts. So many things to think about for everyone to have been here with us during this really special and powerful time for me. And I'm wondering if anyone has any reflections or comments, especially for Mack and Francis. I feel like you bared so much of your hearts and souls, and I just want to like give you so much gratitude. And I wish I could be smooshed up with you in that bed and just singing and holding you. And I'm just wanting to invite, if anyone has any reflections or comments, either in the chat or verbally, before we sign off.
I have so much reverence for this kind of both surrender and strength that I'm feeling and witnessing here. I'm super grateful.
Hi, everybody. I just really want to thank you for the choice you made to make this live. How much strength it takes to be able to talk about these really hard, scary, painful experiences. And we're talking about life and death, and to choose to do this live is really remarkable. And I just want to thank you for your vulnerability and for trusting us in this space to share some of the most tender moments in your lives, I imagine. And my heart is with you. Thank you. So I want to say thank you. And just from all of us here, none of us have a lot of words. We had a lot of tears and sounds. And it was just so beautiful and so special to be a part of it.
Couldn't have said it better. Thank you all. Thank you for bringing us into a space where I could access tears. Not able to do very often these days, and always feels like a really vital gift when they do come. Thank you for the ceremony of this today.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Can we sing them out?
I was hoping that might happen.
Thank you all for sharing this experience with.
You gonna sing us out, Xander?
Well, the one that I'm thinking of, I feel like you two should sing. It's You Do Not Carry This All Alone.
Yeah, we can do that.
You do not carry this.
So what's my note?
You do not carry this all alone. You do not carry this all alone. This is way too big for you to carry this all alone. So you do not carry this all alone.
Everybody.
Yeah.
You all. I don't want this podcast to just show a care web. I want it to be one. We're building it as we go, and I honestly still don't fully know what a care web is, but I'm really into dreaming into it with you. If you want to be part of it, DM me at Xander Pierre Keller on Instagram or TikTok, or email heldtogetherpod@gmail.com. Finding my voice through song has been a big part of my journey. I knew there needed to be held together music, so I sent some voice memos to my friend Ember Bradbury. She responded with the first of many held together songs, the one we're singing here. Find her as Sorona Isle. Stay tender, stay tangled, stay held together.
Held together we survive. Held together we nourish. Held together we thrive. Held together we flourish. Held together we flourish.